Or another thing that can happen is kids can get trapped in roles when they want to find a sense of belonging in a classroom or the home, and they don't feel a sense of belonging. They might, take on being the class clown or being the golden child, right? Or they might take on roles to find their place. And I might need to help them break out of that role that they're trapped in.
What is up, everybody? It's Ed Gallo Jr. from the Dad Central Show and Dad Central. And I think I know who is beside me, but I need to hear his name.
Drew Solon of Dad Central and the Dad Central Show. How come you're confused, Ed?
No, I just wanted to get clarity. You always tell me about clarity. And I want to give the listeners and the viewers clarity. And, I always got to keep it different. I don't think I've had a duplicate opening since we started.
No.
There you go. So I always got to mix it up. So what are you doing here? It's the Dad Central Show, and it's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man, because when men care for themselves and others, there's a positive impact. So Drew, what's going on in your world today?
Well, at the time of recording, I'm getting ready for the holidays and preparing for that time of year, and fun and plans and budgets and connection, all the things that are important to us at this time of year. What's going on with you?
Got up this morning, opened the front door. What did I see on the ground? What do you think? No, I took care of them. I did that this weekend. I took care of the leaves this weekend. I saw snow. And I'm going, oh boy. So after this recording, I'm going to my shed to make sure my snowblower is in working order. So that's
ready for the winter. All right.
Yes, it looks like it's going to be a long one this year compared to previous ones, because it's already chilly, but it's going to be all good.
That's good news for the backyard rink. So if that
yes,
then I'll be happy.
Okay, so here we go. When that goes up, we need pictures on the Dad Central Instagram page.
Okay, sure, no problem.
And also a video of you skating around on it.
Yeah, nobody wants to see that.
But hold on a second. You're telling me you're an athlete. What?
Former athlete.
Oh,
who likes to just stay active.
Okay. You got your out. So we're not going to banter anymore, because we have another new friend coming on the Dad Central Show today. We have Valerie Tih of Joyful Coaching on the Dad Central Show today. And look, before we started recording, if you want to hear a story, if she ever sits down with you and opens up some of her story, you're going to say, where's the book? Where's the movie? But today we just have her on our show. Hello, Valerie. How are you?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. How you doing today?
I'm good. I'm really good. I'm excited to be here, and I really appreciate what the two of you are doing for dads.
Well, thank you for that, Valerie. Appreciate that. And we really love, I think, your message. Your message really speaks to, positive discipline. You talk about brain science, all things that when we look at how Dad Central was created, those messages all align with, what we do and how we're doing as well. So really honored to have you here on the show. But before we get to, all the wisdom you're going to share, maybe could you tell us a little bit about your journey? Tell us about Valerie before all of a sudden you became Joyful Coaching.
Well, I've always been a seeker. I'm adopted, so I was always grappling with my identity and trying to discover who I am. But I think I'll touch on what got me into positive discipline. Even before I became a parent, I was teaching kindergarten at the time, and I was scolding a child in the hallway. I just wasn't feeling gratified with teaching. It was kind of like whack-a-mole, putting out fires all day. And so I was scolding this child, and one of my colleagues, under her breath, said, "Oh my God, she sounds just like my mother." And I was within earshot She didn't realize I was. So that didn't feel good. It was like a dagger in my heart. I don't know what some other mothers sound like, but mine didn't sound so great. So that really hurt. And that started me on the journey to change. So I read the book, How to Talk So Kids Will Listen. I don't know if either of you have read that book, but it's almost like a graphic novel. On one
Mm.
side, it's, don't do this. And then on
Mhm.
the other side, there's illustrations and tips for do this instead. So I was pretty much the poster child of what not to do. So I think in terms of encouraging dads, if I could do it, change how I used to be with young people, then anyone can. And the second piece is I started doing positive discipline. It was really working. I was gaining lots of traction, but there were still some blind spots for me. And it wasn't until I discovered the Enneagram personality typing tool that really took it to the next level for me and as a parent.
Okay. Well, I'm curious. Ed, you can hop in after. Just one quick question. What were the immediate differences that you noticed, as a teacher when you shifted your approach on how to talk so kids will listen?
Oh, well, as a teacher, before I had kids, I thought I knew everything. And I was like all judgy about the moms and dads, like, oh my God, get it together, people. Like, I had no idea how hard it is to be a parent. So I think some of the big differences was just how to talk to young people in a respectful way and to really
Mhm.
listen and to nurture the relationship. It made me almost into a teacher whisperer when I
Okay.
connected with kids before guiding them. Once they felt seen and understood and respected by me, they were much more likely to do that in turn and to cooperate.
Awesome. Thank you. Ed?
You mentioned a term Enneagram. People are going to go, what that? Can you break it
Ennio,
down
what?
yeah, can you break it down for our dads and families?
Sure. Ennea means 9 and gram means written down. So it's an ancient Greek term. And it's a personality typing system, but it's different than typical systems, maybe like Myers and Briggs or the color systems. Some corporations are using personality typing tools to help with team building. Sometimes they're used in marital counseling. The Enneagram's a little different. Instead of telling you what you are, it tells you how you've been keeping yourself stuck, maybe some blind spots that you have. And when you bring those into awareness with some compassion, then it begins to soften. You're not being driven by these kind of unconscious biases that make us more fear-based and more reactionary in our parenting. And so when we bring those blind spots into awareness, we can transform them actually into our biggest parenting gifts. And we can show up in a more responsive and loving way and more gratifying, the way we want to parent.
Mm.
I've got a two-part conversation piece. First of all, how long were you a teacher for and what grades?
18 years, kindergarten.
How long?
18 years.
And you're still
18 years in Canada, and I taught overseas in Asia. I taught English for 8 years. So I guess 26 years I was a teacher.
okay, with so much evaluated transcontinental experience as a teacher. How, and it sounds like you already shared how it affected you as a parent. How has that impacted your joyful coaching brand?
I think really having experienced relationships and supporting parents from so many different backgrounds, cultures, such diversity, that it's really helped me be able to relate to any parents who come my way. And a lot of parents come with when their kids are struggling in school or having issues at school or with their teachers or their peers at school. So because I've supported children on that end, I can help bridge those worlds for parents and give them really practical tools for their kids to thrive in both environments, home and school.
Mm.
Just out of curiosity, branding, joyful.
Yes,
Were
full
you?
of joy.
Yes.
Misspelled on
So, so,
purpose.
so parenting can be a joyful experience.
Yes. I mean, it's not about if I do positive discipline or I learn about the Enneagram, then I get a free pass. I mean, today my dog peed on the carpet. My son didn't really want to go to school this morning. He was kind of dragging his feet. He was a bit tired. He's a bit under the weather. Like, life still happens, right? It doesn't mean, oh, if I do all these things, then I won't have any problems or issues. It's more about how can I respond in a way that's really feels like it's going to be helpful and be a learning opportunity for me and my child, and for my child to do better next time. Because I'm 52. I was even different 5 years ago than I am today. So our kids are not who they're going to be. Right now, they're still like an acorn going into an oak tree. They're still developing. So how can we support them as they're unfolding, developing, and doing the best they can with the brains and bodies that they have right now?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great point. It's, parenting is a marathon, not a sprint, right? That another analogy you could use. Well, I wanted to go back to your almost tongue-in-cheek comment about, when I was a teacher and I did some of that learning, I thought I knew it all, and then all of a sudden I became a parent. So maybe we can land a little bit on the challenges that maybe you even experienced become as a parent and learning, and then what many parents might often experience too in terms of doing what they have known, or just what they experienced, and the challenges that come up with that, and to drive them to be maybe. Anyways, can we start there? But your sort of parenting journey, and those things that came up for you, and then what parents often struggle with early on.
I think originally I did think that if I did all the right things, I would get a free pass
Mm,
on some of the, issues that, my eldest son in particular, he's a teenager. So you think, oh, if I do it all right when he's little, then the teen years might be easier. But he's still learning and growing and making mistakes. So the biggest challenge for me is trusting, as you said, in the marathon, in the
mm,
long game, that this process, that this relationship that we have is enough. Like, I'm the best tool in my parenting toolbox. And if I keep our relationship strong, and trust in that relationship, that um, he will thrive, and he's going to make mistakes along the way. So how can I support him? So I think just not freaking out when stuff happens. But it's hard, especially as a former teacher and as a parent coach, you feel society's stink eye even more, right? On you, the
mm,
pressure even more. Your kid's messing
right.
up. That shouldn't be happening. But just understanding that I don't get a free pass either. Every parenting coach is going to tell you that their kids go through things, and then how can we support them?
Hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting point. Especially when as you said, it's almost like you're in under the microscope more so, and what pressure that creates, and how does that affect you? Because really, as parents, there's so much that comes at us and affects us, but big time, a lot of the time, the things that are inside us are the things that maybe create some of those challenges, right? They
would
come up, and how do we handle it?
Would you like a specific example? And it might be great because it was about my son
Sure.
trying to understand his masculinity. Um, so I got, a parent coming up to me on the play at the school dismissal saying, "Your son told my son that he'd be better off dead. If the world would be better if he was dead." So of course, inside I was mortified. And I said, okay, well, I'll investigate. I'll get back to you. And so I have permission from my son to tell this story. So I went to his teacher. I said, can you, this happened on the playground. Can you check this out? So the teacher confronted my son and he started crying. He was remorseful. He took full responsibility. He said, yes, this happened. And he owned up to it. So that was amazing for me. Like, those are, I want him to take responsibility. I want him to tell the truth. I want him to care. So I was like, okay. So that, the teacher came back to me, and so I spoke to our son about that. And he told me that the boys, this was like third or fourth grade, and the boys were starting to kind of puff up and like, your mother, or like dissing each other. And he just took it one step too far in the dissing, and knew it as soon as he said it, but it was like, it was already out, right? Like, it was gone. So I understood, okay, here's my son. So this happened and he has to make amends. And then there's this other piece of he's trying to figure out what's it mean now as I'm growing up to be a boy or to be a man. And what does being strong and tough look like? So there were kind of two, if I look what's going on under the behavior, I have to address this. But first I have to deal with making amends. So we together came up with that he would play with this boy at school for a whole week and then make a card about what makes the world a better place with this boy in it. So he did that and it went really well. And we talked about, if he was upset with this other boy, other ways that he could advocate for himself rather than, dissing him. And then we dealt with the what's it mean to be tough and to kind of puff up on the playground. And that led to him joining this Next Gen Men group for young boys. And he was in a CBC documentary about masculinity and what's it mean to be masculine. So it was kind of, I always see, at first I was horrified, and just like every parent, I'm like, oh my God, my kid's going to juvie, like he's a bad kid. Like, right. I went total fear-based, but once I got more present and calm myself down, it's like, what would be helpful here? How could I help him do better the next time, make amends, and then deal with what's actually going on under the behavior? And I asked him, on a scale of 1 to 8, how do you feel about what happened? 1 to 10. And he said 8. And I said, what would have made it a 10? And he said, if I hadn't have done it. So.
Great. Well, I mean, that's, a challenging situation, right? As a parent, another parent approaches you, they're all upset. So thank you for sharing that. So can you talk then about the process that you went through to bring yourself back to being present, as opposed to being fear-based, because that's what you talked through.
Yeah. So I believe that in order to, I can show you a little continuum. Actually, there's, we're all on a continuum of fear or love and presence, right? So when we're more fear-based, we tend to default into sort of patterns or unconscious habits. That's where we might parent from. So if I'd stayed in that fear, I might have come down hard on him or shamed him or punished him, which wouldn't have been helpful or got to the root cause of what happened in that incident. And so to be present, this is, I was a seeker and I went all around the world, and all the wisdom traditions, they said, be here now, be present. And I did, and I was like, yeah, tell me the good stuff, because I didn't understand what be here now means, what being present means. And I finally understood through the Enneagram. So the Enneagram, to be present, to be calm, to be love-based, we need 3 things. You can think of it like a 3-prong plug. Okay. So one of the prongs is our body. One of our prongs is our deeper heart, not our reactive heart that's touchy or reactive. It's the deeper heart is like our own inner knowing, our navigation system. Our heart's very sensitive, but more neutral and attuned, not reactive. And then our head. And again, not our head that is busy, that busy mind. It's a deeper, open, clear, discerning, wise mind. So when we have our body, our heart, and our mind all online, we're present and we're more resourced to respond rather than react to the situation. So what I love about the Enneagram, it provides a really clear map to see where might one of our prongs be a bit wonky, or we're not accessing it, or where are we not accessing resources that could be really helpful to us? Where are we over relying on one? Maybe we're just relying on our feelings for that situation, or our body taking action without slowing down and attuning to what's needed. And also, we need our head to discern what might be the right way to look at this objectively, to notice. So we need all 3 working together to be well-resourced. Hope that explains.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And especially when you use the example of, over relying on one of those prongs. And as a dad, I'm not speaking for every other dad. The action or taking action or fixing and, kind of relying on moving forward is, let's say, the one that's more prominent, I'd say, oftentimes. So what is the what's my question? I guess my question is, how would you help a dad who's really, caught in that or more reactionary approach in terms of, okay, I got to take action, I got to fix it, I got to respond, I got to do something here, to maybe slow down a bit and access those other areas so that there can be maybe a more effective, more resourced approach.
Right. So one way that could be really helpful using the Enneagram is we all approach the world with 9 lenses, right? There's 9 Enneagram types. So there's 9 kind of driving factors that, like you said, your approach would be to take action, right? Or to try and fix it. That might not be every dad's approach. One dad might be like, oh, this is overwhelming to me. I'm just going to kind of dial it in a bit and I'll be shut down over here a little bit, like, right? Or another dad might be a little bit like trying to rectify it, by coaching or correcting. So we might approach it in a different way depending on our lens. So I would really be encouraging and helping dads to know, what's my lens? What am I getting at? And what might I be missing by only focusing, like overusing my parenting gift? Because action and power are very important resources for leadership. But if we overdo that, then we can be overpowering, over-resourced, right? Or like overbearing. Overbearing was the word that I wanted to use. So we could be taking over the situation and not necessarily problem solving with our child.
Well, that's an interesting phrase, problem solving with our child. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, I'm of the Ross Green persuasion. I don't know if you're familiar with Ross Green, but basically he feels that kids do well if they can, and if they aren't, then something's getting in the way.
Okay.
And so oftentimes what's getting in the way could be a lagging skill. Like maybe if I'm being rude to a teacher to try and get what I want, maybe I don't have the skill to advocate for myself in a way that's respectful, that's going to help my message be heard. So maybe I need some coaching around, tell the truth, advocate, but how could you do that in a better way? So maybe there's a lagging skill. Another thing that might be underneath is a need that's not being met. So every human being has 4 psychological needs that need to get met according to Alfred Adler. So I might help see, is there a need that this child's wanting that isn't being met in a healthy way? So now they're misguided in trying to get that need met. Or another thing that can happen is kids can get trapped in roles when they want to find a sense of belonging in a classroom or the home, and they don't feel a sense of belonging. They might, take on being a class clown or being the golden child, right? Or they might take on roles to find their place. And I might need to help them break out of that role that they're trapped in.
Yeah. Well, the idea of belonging that you just brought up, certainly I think we all, have that sense of wanting to belong. A little bit of an aside. So I go to Planet Fitness, which is my gym, and I think their marketing is brilliant because, they're the anti-gym atmosphere, and their phrase is "you belong," right? It's like you belong here. So it's right. Anyway, so an aside, I think we all have that. Can you talk about how do we create an atmosphere as a parent, or how do we create that sense of to our child that they really belong in with us in that family?
I think that that connection that creates that sense of belonging, it only takes one adult, so that can definitely be dad, and that connection is built on a foundation of presence. We can only connect, and our kids can only feel that sense of belonging with us if we're showing up, if we're here. But oftentimes there's things that are blocking our ability to really show up fully and to truly connect, and for our children to feel that sense of belonging. So when we know what's getting in the way of showing up, then we can show up more fully and help our kids feel a sense of belonging.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Are you a dad who feels like you're juggling a million things at once? Balancing work, family, and personal goals can be overwhelming. But what if there was a solution? That's why we created our new fatherhood community called Dad Mentor. For over 20 years, Dad Central has built practical tools to help dads. We understand the challenges you face and provide the support you need to thrive. The biggest complaint we hear from dads is there's no dedicated support for their specific needs, but not anymore. Our new community, called Dad Mentor, is here to transform your fatherhood experience. Imagine feeling in control, staying calm and patient when your children misbehave. Picture yourself connected to your children, guiding them with confidence and watching them succeed. When you join Dad Mentor, you'll have access to a community of like-minded dads committed to their dad journey, just like you. You'll also get the Dad's Roadmap. This is a step-by-step plan to help you go from unsure to unstoppable as a dad. Monthly masterclasses and Q&A sessions. You'll get answers and know exactly what to do straight from experts. Monthly group meetups that connect dads over common topics. A dad's resource library. Curated webinars, podcasts, or guides built by Dad Central to help you grow as a parent. And finally, you'll also get exclusive members-only offers and events. Now, many dads do try to do this fatherhood thing alone, only to find themselves trapped in frustration and strained relationships. Then they may turn to unhealthy coping mechanisms like drugs, alcohol, or other distractions, leaving their family and their own well-being at risk. We don't want you to reach that point of regret. Take steps to invest in you and your family today. Join Dad Mentor and go from stressed, tired, and overwhelmed to confident, calm, and connected. Join us today by going to dadcentral.ca/dads. Ed, over to you.
Something's been sticking in my mind for the last few minutes. I want to go back to it. And thank you for sharing the story about yourself and your son. And you said many knowledge bombs there, but one of the things I'd like you to expand upon is that you asked your son permission to share the story. I don't know how many parents would do that, how many dads would do that. Can you expand on that practice with you and your son?
Well, this is permanent online, and his history and his social profile, if you will. So I want to make sure that he's okay with what I'm sharing, and also just to show him that I respect him and his personhood and what is his to share and not share. And I respect him and care about him, and I want him to feel that for me and feel that in our relationship.
And also another conversation piece is in so many different parenting environments, as a teacher, as a parent yourself, in different cultures. When it comes to dads, do you see common challenges from dads in the different environments and cultures you've been exposed to? And if so, what are they?
Yeah, I would start by, I do see a lot about what Drew said, is dads really wanting to fix things, to take action, and feeling helpless when something isn't maybe solvable through action, when it's more kind of a connection piece or a feeling, or like this more emotional kind of situation can sometimes, I really feel, I see my son going through it, trying to know what it means to be a man and what it means to be a strong man. And so luckily things are changing, but I don't think there's a ton of resources for dads and young men in terms of supporting them around developing that. So I think some of the emotional turmoil that can happen within families can be confusing for dads. And I would say in my world, my youngest son has Down syndrome, so I'm really active in the disability world. So, you can't necessarily fix when your child has a disability, or you're now raising the child you didn't expect maybe to have and to raise. And so what's that going to look like, and how can you be kind to yourself and support yourself through that? It can be such a big learning opportunity to really up-level your life if you let this child with a disability be your life coach, so to speak.
Drew, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I love the fact that we're, talking about some of these maybe challenges or barriers that dads may experience. Because I think if you're not aware, this is a potential barrier to the ability to create that connection, which is the core of helping children feel like they belong and building a lot of positive things just in the relationship. You know, you got to start there, really. So, when you are then working with dads, then how do you help them through this process to identify and move towards a more of a joyful parenting approach, which comes with some of those elements of connection and belonging?
I don't want to stereotype, but here's what typically happens. So I want to say it's not with all dads, but many dads that I see, usually mom comes to the parenting class and dad comes kicking and screaming, not necessarily wanting to be there. And often because dad feels like he's going to have to give up his values or wanting to be the leader or wanting to be, sometimes dad's a little bit more strict.
So on that fear spectrum, as opposed
Yes.
to the present spectrum, right? He's more fearful, losing something.
Yeah,
Okay.
because, it's traditionally, it's like, just wait till your dad gets home. Like, dad's supposed to be in charge, right? Dad's supposed to be the rock. Dad's supposed to have it together.
Mhm.
Dad's supposed to be the leader. And so I think sometimes dads come in thinking they're going to have to give up those values, their values that they want to instill in their child. And there often can be a polarity within the family, whereas usually dad is the one who lays down the law and mom is like, wanting to do more of the kind of like emotional coaching and
Mhm.
so they can kind of almost become polarizations of one another, right? One a little bit more permissive and the other one a little bit more controlling. And then they're just feeling like the only option is I've got to lose and then do this, or the other person feels, oh, I have to not be permissive and then be really strict. And I don't want to be like that because maybe I didn't like being raised that way. So parents feel stuck and like there's only these two choices. So I'm noticing now that dads realize, wow, I don't have to give up my rules. I don't have to give up my values. I don't have to give up being a leader to also be kind and empathetic and caring. So it's a both and. And so actually both parents have to change to find that kind and firm balance of leadership that's not so polarized. So it can really save a lot of marriages too, or partnerships.
Yeah.
Where there is that polarity within the family, and it really helps parents get on the same page, and they both have to change a little bit. But also, that said, I think dads bring something really special to the family. Like, I can think of my husband. I wouldn't want him to parent exactly like me. He brings so many amazing things to our family just by being a dad and being who he is. So it's not about being exactly the same. It's just in terms of our vision for our family. And as you said, going for that marathon rather than the sprint. And how are we going to kind of approach this in a helpful way? That can really help parents get on the same page. But at the end of the day, we're different people, so we're going to parent differently. And I think that's really special and important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, lots of great things that you talked about there, but maybe the point that really stands out to me is it's more like identifying your strengths as a parent. You continue to work very well in your strengths from a place of presence, not from a place of fear.
Yep.
And then working collaboratively together as parents to essentially, put me in coach when it's time for dad's strength and put me in coach when it's time for mom's strength, and
Yeah.
being together in that process, as opposed to like, well, it's got to be my way or it's got to be your way. It's actually, how do we both get in this together, and how do we use what we've got that's unique to us, that's valuable, in the best way for our child?
You nailed it, Drew. Yeah. 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, what's Ed, you want to hop in, or I can ask one quick question and give it back to you?
You go ahead.
Okay. So my one quick question then is, what is maybe your advice to a dad who might be feeling he's going to lose something? What would you say to him to help him work through that?
Yeah. Generally, when parents come in, I play them this video of Everybody Loves Raymond, and so like Deborah comes in like so it's actually the opposite. His mom comes in, telling the twins, get in the thing, do them, she's screaming at them. And then Raymond's like, just sort of sitting there, feeling overwhelmed, and says to his mom, who's sitting next, like, Mom, can I go outside and play? So it's sort of this caricatures, if you will. So I kind of humorously show how this polarization looks, and then introduce that, what would have been, these are both fear-based reactions, either like coming in guns a-blazing or wanting to be the fun one, or a little bit dialing it in, or not wanting to be very strict. And those are both reactionary, right? Just in opposite sides of the coin. So showing dads that through relationship is where our kids are going to integrate our values. Think of anybody that you admire. I did a workshop with Betty Lou Bettner. There were like 300 or 400 people there. And she said, who touched your life in some way that made you feel that you matter, that you belong, that you were seen, that you felt loved, that you felt important? Who was that person? You wouldn't be here today if there wasn't at least one adult who made you feel that way. Meaning, like, you wouldn't be alive unless somebody made you feel that you belonged on this earth. And for the majority of people, it was a teacher, a coach, a grandma, an aunt. There was maybe 5 of the 300 where it was a parent. So that is really sad. So I'm really hoping that's sort of my mission to change, that it's parents who do that. So when we are that person who our child can feel close to, who feels seen and understood, it is through that relationship that they'll just naturally want to be more cooperative, more naturally want to follow our values. They admire us, look up to us. It's true for anybody, right? And so we want them to integrate our values so that when we're not around, they do the right thing, they make the right choice, versus being blindly afraid of us, or that they might get in trouble. We have these strict rules. Rules have loopholes. It's like no chat GPT. Well, then I'll just use this other app, right? Like, rules have loopholes. So how can we help our kids integrate our values? And so dads usually come around when we talk about the relationship, integrating values, our kids making the right choices when we're not here. Do you want them to leave with a boo you or a thank you? I'm pretty sure I can't swear, but when they launch, rhymes with duck. Like, what do you want them to say to you when they finally leave home?
Right. I just want one thing that reminds me of, Jack Armstrong was on our show last year. He had a fantastic bulletin board. He's like, rules without relationship equals rebellion. Rules with relationship equals results.
Yeah.
It's reminding me of what you just said there.
Yeah.
Okay, Ed, over to you.
No problem. Just wanted to ask too, in regards to dads, and it sounds like you, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're seeing more awareness when it comes to parent. What do you have any reasons why you feel that is happening when it comes to dads and their increased awareness of parenting, or are they seem more aware that, hey, parenting's important, it seems, because you have that evaluated experience working with dads. Do you have any reasons why you're seeing that?
Well, I think one part is just, as I said at the top of the show, where traditional ways of parenting aren't working. So often dads are coming because, ways that maybe they have been raised or that they're expected to raise their kids, it's not effective. We need modern times. We need modern ways of parenting. So I think that is one of the biggest driving factors, is they're frustrated.
Right.
And then I think the second thing is times are changing. I think there's things are opening up. What is actually being a dad? What does it mean to be masculine? There, just as things are opening up for women to be broader in our humanity, I think things are opening up for men, for there to be broader aspects of our humanity. And I'm really happy about that. I'm happy about that. I have 2 boys. So I want that for our future. And dads I see dads so plugged in and caring. Like, it's really heartening to me to see the shift in dads really, really wanting to be a big part of raising raising their children.
I have just one additional point onto that. From your lens, what on the same subject, how much did the pandemic impact this subject?
I think definitely our kids were struggling, and it put a big pressure on parents in very unprecedented and unexpected ways, especially mental health and emotional issues and learning. So, we couldn't just kind of carry on the status quo. It was a big disruptor of families, and a lot of families, it was a big breaking point, big breakdown in families. Really, a lot of families were in crisis. So there's still now healing happening for families around that. And unfortunately, screens took over because that was a lifeline. So I think that can be a big driving factor too, of like, how do I now, I had this sort of really strict rules around screen time, and that went out the window. But now, how do we come back to not having this sort of cancer in the family of we're just all in separate rooms on screens?
All right. Thank you, Drew.
Yeah, I think when you describe that pandemic experience, it's like when you build on a foundation, and when the pressure and the intensity ratchets up, that's when the cracks in the foundation get revealed, right? And I think that's what when you were referencing, in unprecedented pressures on the family. When you didn't have it on the right foundation, that's when the cracks of this time really, exploded and crumbled some families. Absolutely.
Yeah. I would add to that too, is in our Enneagram thinking of when we get more fear-based on that continuum, right, of presence versus fear, reactive parenting, we default into more reactive ways of parenting when things are unpredictable and chaotic. And so the pandemic was definitely that. And guess what else is chaotic and unpredictable? Kids. So they're going to bring out greatest fear in us. It's just going to happen. They're so unpredictable. So we're all there's 9 ways that we can kind of default and react. So I help parents know that's normal and natural. Of course, you're going to be feeling this way. So the Enneagram is a symbol. So it actually has a very, very precise map to help people come back to presence. So that's why maybe for one person doing yoga or going for walks or, that is going to work for them. But for another person, that's their worst nightmares. So it's really finding personalized tools that are going to help you transform those blind spots into more helpful ways of parenting.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Valerie.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I think that's today's conversation. There's so much more, but time doesn't permit that much more. Valerie, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, I'm at joyfulcoaching.ca with 2 L's. It's full of joy, right? It's on purpose.
Yes, branding.
I'm on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook. I like to post really provocative ideas for parents to think about. Right now, hot topics are AI. I just did a whole session on parenting around, you want to talk about unknown and unpredictable. So very fearful, very scary. So, if we can apply these principles. So, parents want those kind of resources, I would love for them to have a follow. And I have a link that I've given you too. They can have a free download of the 4 needs that every child needs, and some practical ways that dads can help their kid meet that in a proactive way.
Well, that's fantastic. And also thank you for offering that resource to our dads and families. Appreciated and not taken for granted. And again, we just like that Drew and myself and the Dad Central Show family would like to say thank you for all you have done, are doing, and will be doing, wherever it is around the world when it comes to positive discipline, and looking forward to having you back on the show in the near future. And if there's anything we can do to help amplify what you're doing, please feel free to reach out.
Okay. Thanks so much, gentlemen.
Have a great day. All right. Take home time.
Man, I think the take home for me is Well, certainly, presence, but presence and the ability to know yourself. I think that's ultimately the key, because if you can get a sense of where you are on that continuum, that great graphic that Valerie showed us, then you can make a more conscious choice of where you want to be and begin moving in that direction. So, yeah, knowing yourself as a parent was kind of my takeaway.
Yeah, for me, her sharing of some of her personal story, and especially, how she handled certain situations. I think I want people either to watch this and maybe rewind it a few times and go through that process, because I think it's not only good for parents and children, but us as adults. It's not just that. I think just as adults, it's very applicable, a lot of the practices. And I like that phrase, positive parenting. Positive, I don't hear that phrase that much. So I really like parenting is a positive thing when you do it right. It's a joyful. There you go. Back to the branding again. Joyful. So I think that's one of the many take homes. So as always, the Dad Center Show is sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. Dove Men Plus Care believes that care is the best of a man, because when men care for themselves and others, there is positive impact. Also, we'd like you, if you're up to it, email us, contact us, tell us what you like, what we can improve on. Do you have any guest suggestions? We got lots of guests coming through, but I'm sure there are people out there that we don't know about that need to be on the show. Also, you can listen or watch replays of this epic conversation. You go to dadcentral.ca/podcast. And finally, dadcentral.ca, piles of great resources there on that website. So on behalf of Drew and myself, I'd like to say thank you for taking time to watch or listen to the show. And always, don't just manage your time, manage your energy. Make sure you give yourself grace, and we'll chat with you soon. Be well.